My journey with mental health started when I was 6 and was in kindergarten, and that year my parents got a divorce. And following their divorce, my mom's mental health really started to suffer. She had been diagnosed with several different mental health conditions, and for the next 7 years, I started to visit my mom in and out of mental health facilities all across the state. And I really had this image of the blue fuzzy socks she had to wear in every mental health facility kind of scarred into my brain. And following many years of hospitalizations and, dealing with her own mental health challenges, my mom did die by suicide when I was 14 years old. Following her death, I went to see a therapist of my own and was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder, and generalized anxiety. And for the next 5 years, I really railed against those diagnoses because I had seen her struggle for so long in different facilities with her own mental health conditions, and unfortunately for her, things never really got any better. So I kind of had the same idea for myself. But by the time I had turned 19, things had gotten really bad, and I had my first psychotic break. I wasn't able to sleep, I wasn't eating, I had lost a great deal of weight. I had to drop out of community college, and I lost the part-time job that I had because I wasn't able to leave the house. So following sort of about 30 days of this, I had decided to end my life and started to kind of weigh my options on what I could do and realized that I was not thinking clearly anymore. And I made a phone call to my stepmom and I asked her what she thought I should do. And that, of course, led to a trip to the emergency room. And from the emergency room, after I was evaluated, it was seen that I was in a psychotic episode and that I did require immediate hospitalization for that episode. When I was in the hospital and had to wear those same blue fuzzy socks that my mom had worn in so many different psychiatric facilities, it was sort of an epiphany moment for me where I realized that I could make a change from here, or I could continue to go downhill. I really did see my mom through a different lens for the first time in my whole life. She'd always just been sick to me. And, no one ever took a lot of time to explain what kind of sick she was, or why she was in the hospital so much, or why I had to visit her there. But I saw my mom as more than just a sick person for the first time. I saw her for having different sides to her just like me. I wasn't just a sick person. I was in the hospital at that point, but I was also someone who was trying to go to school, who was trying to have a job, who had a personality, who had hobbies, who had friends. And I'd never seen those sides of my mom before. But once I was in her socks, I realized that she had been a multifaceted person too. She had hopes and dreams, and she had desires, and she had things that she wanted to accomplish but didn't get to. And I realized that I had the chance to do those things for myself that she never had. And from that point, I realized that I had to accept what was. I couldn't change what was. I couldn't change what had already happened. I couldn't change my own diagnoses, but I could move forward every day the best that I possibly could and, keep going. I could just choose to keep going every day. So for me, listening to the doctors, learning about my conditions, and sort of deciding to turn from just being mentally ill to trying my best to be mentally well was a big decision for me. It was something that I didn't want to waste any more time on. I wanted to live the rest of my life doing the best that I could with the conditions that I had. The first thing I did was decide to find the right treatment for me and not just be treated. I wanted to find what was going to work for me best, whether it be medication, whether it be therapy, a holistic approach, outside support groups. I wanted to find what was best going to treat me personally, because I knew if I could find what was going to work for me best, I was most likely going to stick to that. And I could be, the most well possible if I was going to find what worked for me. After that, I realized that I wanted to use my experiences in a career. I wanted to use my lived experience to help other people. All the doctors I had seen, all the professionals I had talked to, although they were helpful, none of them had any lived experience themselves. They all had a great deal of education, they all had empathy, but none of them knew where I was coming from truly. Because for my whole childhood and my adolescence, no one had the experiences I did. And if they did, they weren't sharing them. No one was coming alongside me and telling me it was gonna be okay, or I was normal, or, other people have moms who struggle with mental health conditions. So I wanted to be that person. I wanted to dedicate my life to that. And I decided to go into clinical mental health services. I found NAMI through a friend of the family, and following, gathering more information about NAMI, I signed up for my first training, which was for the Ending the Silence presentation. And about 2 months after the training, I was able to go to my first high school. And there was only about 15 teachers in the classroom. So when I stood up, I had all eyes on me. And I was extremely nervous, and I felt completely vulnerable. And I thought, I'm about to tell these people the messiest parts of my life, complete strangers who may accept me, who may ridicule me, but I felt like it's now or never. I have to use my lived experience to help somebody. And if I'm reaching even one of the teachers that I'm speaking to today, and they can in turn reach one student who may be struggling with their mental health, it felt completely worth it. After the presentation, I was received very warmly by the teachers that had heard my story, and I had several of them come up to me afterwards and say, I have a particular student in mind when you were telling your story that sounded so similar, or even that they too had experienced different things throughout their life that they could equate back to what I had said in my own experiences. But it felt empowering to share my story, to share the parts of me that I had been ashamed of before, but to know that I wasn't being ridiculed, I was being accepted, and I was able to use that for good. Because when I was in school, I didn't have anyone giving mental health education to my teachers, to my administrators, to the people who were helping educate me, and that's exactly what I wish had been there. I went from 15 teachers originally to over 5,000 police, first responders, parents, guardians, teachers, and legislators talking about mental health and what my experiences were like growing up in a mentally ill home and then having mental illness myself. NAMI is important because they provide free services to the people who seek out their care. They provide mental health education, which was really important to me. It was something that I desperately needed in the beginning of my mental health journey. And it also provides support. It provides non-judgmental, stigma-free support from your peers and for people who want to partner with you to help find the best care for you.